Is it time to dismantle some doctrines? If you don't know what that means, then come along with me. I'm Dr. Clint Haycock, a former evangelical Bible college teacher and pastor of more than 20 years. Join me as we deconstruct whatever dogmas and beliefs have held you behind, and together work to reconstruct and rebuild your authentic self. I'm really excited to be talking with Nick from the Autistic Pod. So welcome, Nick, to the Dismantling Doctrine podcast.
Thank you so much. Happy to be here.
Yeah, it's been a hell of a journey for both of us, because I can't remember how many times we've rescheduled this recording. Probably half a dozen times. Whatever reason we couldn't make it, then you got sick, and then we've had all kinds of problems. But now we're finally here. This is actually happening.
Absolutely. I'm very excited. We had talked, and we had tried to set something up, and we put it off, and then it's been a long time coming. So definitely.
It has. And for those of you that are listening, this is actually going to be part one. So I'm going to interview Nick on this show, on my show. Then if you want to hear part two, where Nick interviews me, you're going to have to head over to the Autistic Pod to catch part two. So I'm really looking forward to that, because I think it's a really good way, because it's kind of leaves the listeners hanging a little bit. Wherever we end our conversation, we can just pick that up over on your show. So if you want to hear the second part, you got to head over to Nick's show to catch that as well.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to that as well. It's everybody has their own unique flavor. That's why we have, our own projects, and you never know what's going to come when two people who like talking start talking. That's what my podcast's all about.
That's pretty much what I do. I just like to have organic conversations with people, and you meet people from all walks of life. So I don't know anything about your show. So tell us a little bit. Obviously autistic, so there's something there. What's that about? What's your podcast about, and why do you do it?
Sure. So I came up with the idea back in February, the day I got fired from my job that I'd been in almost 3 years, in fact, ironically enough. But I came up with the idea because I was just unfulfilled and trying to do something that means something to me. I wanted to do something to make a difference, because I see it every day. I see people struggling and just not knowing where to turn, and being depressed and frustrated and having trauma on their back and everything. And I experienced that very recently in December. I've talked about this on the podcast. I went through a severe depression, had unaliving thoughts, had to seek help. And it was because of the fact that the mask that I had been wearing for 20 plus years was starting to, basically what happened is I didn't even realize I was masking until I started trying to mask more. People never understand me, or people rarely understand me or get along with me, especially if you're neurotypical. Most of the time I identify more with people that are just honest and just say what they think, and don't try to hide things in subtext, and don't tell you one thing to your face and then say something behind your back. And I cannot deal with that, because one of my tenets is honesty, and I'm already going ADHD, bouncing back and forth. So regardless, I started the podcast because I wanted to do something. So it took me about a month to record my first episode, but I just bought a little crappy mic off of a Facebook ad that I don't use anymore because it was terrible. And I recorded the first episode. I just talked to myself. I was just like, I said, like and subscribe and everything. And this is the first time I'd ever said those words. It was so weird. But I've had some good people on the show. I've had a few doctors who we talked about autism and neurodiversity, and I've had some people where we talk about politics. I've had some people where we talked about. I brought this woman on who was a nutritionist, and it turns out she was also a Ukrainian refugee who fled Ukraine when the bombs started falling 5 days afterwards. The first night they got woken up at 5 a.m. her family with the sirens going off, and they don't know if a bomb's going to come through their window. It's insane. When you just sit down and talk with people, you can find out so much, and it can help you in your life if you just if you listen and you apply it in the right way. Some people have positive things to tell you. Other people can tell you terrible stories where you can be, oh my God, that's such an awful story. And you can empathize and you can learn from that. You can learn from what's happened to them. And sometimes for me, what I also do is it reminds me that my problems aren't as big as they are. I don't have to worry about a bomb coming through my window. That doesn't lessen my problems, but it does make me feel a little better,
Yeah, a little bit
about
more
the current
safe.
state of politics and
Yeah.
in governments in the US, because there's plenty to
Yeah.
point out, there's plenty to be upset
stressed out
about, but exactly. So
There's a lot to be
that's
stressed
my
out. So-
roundabout ADHD answer for you.
So you identify, you said, I think earlier you said you identify as ADHD. So what does that do to your, in terms of relationships and all the rest of it? I mean, because my ex, I think she was not diagnosed as ADHD, but she had a couple of kids I think were on the spectrum as well, maybe on the spectrum, maybe autistic or Asperger or something like that. And that did affect our relationship. And it was one of the things that kind of led to us breaking up, where it was too much to have to deal with, I think, both for her and for me. And one of the questions that came up was, I said to her, would you want your kids to be actually formally diagnosed? Because none of them had ever gone for any kind of diagnosis. And she said they don't want to know. And I read some articles on that, and there's kind of mixed opinions on that, because someone said, well, I mean, once I was diagnosed, then I knew, quote, in air quotes, what was wrong with me. You know what I mean? It's not that that's wrong with you, but you know what I mean?
Right.
This explains a lot. Do you find that that's the case? Is it helpful to actually get a diagnosis, or would you rather not know?
It's hard to know because I don't have a diagnosis officially. I am. I didn't diagnose myself with autism until I was 42 years old, and I'm 43 now. The reason I diagnosed myself with autism, some people would probably scoff at this, but I watched Love on the Spectrum. I don't know if you've seen that show on Netflix. Great show. It's about people on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, dating. And I kept hearing these guys talk, and this sounds really familiar. And this is exactly how my thought pattern used to work when I was a kid. I can remember it's very hard, but one of the things that ADHD really affects, maybe, I don't know if it's the biggest culprits or what, but I have a terrible memory. Awful. Have you ever seen the movie Memento?
I think so. Is that the one where he has tattoos all over himself?
Yes.
Is that
yes.
the one?
Yes.
He's like he's forgotten everything, but he keeps looking at his tattoos.
He has no short-term memory. He can only remember in 15-minute increments. I got the tattoo. I have no other tattoos, but I got the Remember Sammy Jenkins tattoo because it reminds me to live in the moment, because my memory is so bad. I'm not going to remember that. Once we're done with this podcast, I'll have had a great time, but I won't remember what we talked about for the most part.
Right. You'll just have a good conversation. It's going.
Exactly.
Do you find that's helpful though? Because obviously if you're at work and you need to remember something really important that you got to do tomorrow, you could forget and you could get in trouble.
It could be tough. You have to set reminders. There are exceptions. I don't forget my birthday. I don't forget my phone number. The things that are ingrained, and routine and patterns are super important for ADHD people. You'll see, from my understanding, again, it's always a spectrum. Everybody has different flavors. No two people present exactly the same with neurodivergency, whether it's ADHD, autism, schizophrenia, all of those things that are considered to be neurodivergent. But ADHD presents completely differently in everybody. But from what I understand, routine patterns are very helpful. It was funny because my mom was actually having a conversation with me about how my dad puts his pills in a weird way that drive her crazy and everything, and she just wants him to change it. And my dad never struck me as the one that was responsible for my ADHD, but when I thought about it, I was, that's ADHD right there. If he puts it anywhere else, he probably won't take his pills. He does that because that's where it's comfortable for him. And exactly, he's got that routine. If he doesn't follow that routine, he probably wouldn't take his pills.
I know what you mean.
She just,
because I was accused of, that was what I said, what led to me and my ex breaking up several months ago was if I left a glass on the table, we'd have a meal or something, watching a movie or whatever. And if I left a glass on the table, you couldn't handle that. Are you going to put that away? Are you going to put that in the kitchen? Are you going to? See, I'll do it when the movie's over. I mean, to me, it didn't bother me at all, but it was such a big deal. That kind of thing, it was out of place to her, and it was really bothersome. And that led to a lot of arguments about stuff and she just couldn't deal with it. And I think that maybe that was her presenting as her ADHD issues. She just couldn't deal with it. She couldn't handle it, and then accusing me of doing it on purpose. And I obviously wasn't doing it on purpose. To me, it's not a big deal. I'll deal with it when the movie's finished. But that story of your dad and his pills, that kind of rings a bell with me. What happened there?
No, I totally agreed. I mean, see, that's the opposite for me. I'm the type of ADHD person that just leaves shit. That just, is
everywhere.
I'll leave 20 cans next to the couch before I clean them up. And my fiance is also ADHD, and we're both not great at keeping up after ourselves, because we put all of our energy into trying to complete the day and trying to get through it all and get to the parts that we want, and then it's almost you got nothing left. It could
too
be
much
tough.
effort to clean up the cans or whatever it might be. It's not that big of a deal. Well, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned. You talked about masking. And when you said masking, wearing a mask, I instantly go to my religious experiences as an evangelical, and now I'm an ex-evangelical. When I hear the word masking, what I go to is this idea of your religious self, this idea of doubling. You create this religious self that kind of goes along with your authentic self. In the process of wearing this religious mask to fit in, and for a variety of reasons, you end up suppressing your authentic self. Does that relate in any way to what you were talking about in terms of masking?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of most neurodivergents that I've spoken with mask in one way or another, and most neurotypicals too, but it almost seems it's more of a weight on neurodivergence just from speaking with people and just from personal experience. Because I mean, for me personally, I was saying the first podcast, when I had nothing else to talk about, when I didn't know what to talk about, I talked about honesty, because that's a cornerstone for me. Because there's a big argument online between neurodivergents about whether or not a strong sense of justice is an autistic or neurodivergent trait. And I can tell you from my experience, it absolutely is, just simply from the fact that I'm autistic, I'm ADHD, and I have a very strong sense of justice. It's one of the largest things. I'll point out cheaters. I will call myself out if I see something and we're playing a game or something, and I'm looking under, and then I see something. I saw that. I don't want to play with those rules
filter.
in the same. Well, but I want everything to be fair. And it's the same thing with the honesty. I think honesty is the biggest respect you can show somebody. I don't agree with this whole, somebody cooked this meal and it's terrible, and you're, this is delicious. You don't tell them it's the worst thing you ever ate, but thank you so much for cooking this meal. It's really good. Now,
you put a lot of effort in.
It might be a little over seasoned or a little overcooked or something. You don't have to be a giant jerk about it, but exactly, constructive criticism. Tell people what mistakes were made so that they can potentially fix it in the future. Now, a lot of people will take that as an attack, and that's a problem that I've gone through all my life, but it's never meant to. It's meant to say, hey, I respect you. I want you to understand what I feel about this and what other people might see about this. And I wouldn't want, it's the same thing. If somebody says something, when they say nip it in the butt or something like that, I will tell them separately. I won't say it in front of everybody, but I'll be like, hey, FYI, it's nip it in the bud, not butt. Anybody who knows what it is will think that's stupid or whatever. So that's what I always try to do. I always try to be honest with people, and it's always backfired on me. I've been taken advantage of in multiple job opportunities, lost jobs because I put the trust in the wrong people and they backstabbed me, and in this most recent job as well. So it's been something that I struggle with, that I've had to learn, and so now I know that wearing a mask at work is necessary for certain aspects. You can't completely change your personality, but there have to be some things that you simply remove, and you don't have to be so personal and honest, and you can just removing the oversharing isn't necessarily masking. It's just protection. It's protection
kind of
for
tempering
me
it
in the
down.
future.
It's true, because I think I'm similar. I can resonate with a lot of what you're saying. I don't know if I'm on the spectrum or not. I've never been diagnosed or anything, but I'm probably honest to a fault as well. So I've had things come back to bite me in the ass because I've said stuff to someone and I thought, okay, I shouldn't have said that. It wasn't cruel, but oversharing or pointing out things that I didn't have to say it. But there's something in you, isn't it, that just goes, I'm going to blurt it out. There's where's the filter? Just because you see something doesn't mean you have to say something about it. Especially if you said, I resonate a lot with what you said about honesty, cheaters, because I project that, I think, on other people. I think, okay, I'm basically an honest person. If someone's lying to me, I don't treat people that way. I have a hard time because I'm a teacher, and I've got young 16 to 18-year-olds, and some of these learners, their objective is to wind up the teacher and make them get frustrated and angry. And I think, okay, and they laugh. They think it's funny when you get upset. They think it's a big joke, and they've won then. And what I told my girlfriend the other day, I said, what I don't understand is I don't treat people that way, and I have a really hard time understanding why anyone would act that way and think it's funny when you get upset and angry. So it's a difficult thing for me as a teacher to try. So it's a similar kind of thing, isn't it? You do struggle with these issues sometimes, I think.
Well, and when it comes to that, I would say that's more a developmental issue for a behavioral issue. That's somebody who has not learned to be productive and be a productive member of society for me. And that's why I created my rules. I don't know if you had a chance to look over those. That's one thing that I came up with on my third podcast when I was on 30 milligrams of edibles. I'll do edibles every now and again when I do a podcast, because it's almost, and 10 milligrams of edibles is medicine to me. It calms my mind, and it means that, because when they're finding out that neurodivergence and autistics and ADHD, you have 3 times the amount of thoughts as everybody else, where it's just these racing, crowded circuitries just crashing into each other. And it's not about smarter, or it's not about deeper. It's just literally more information. It's just constant. Just it never shuts up here. It's always just, I had this conversation with my mom when I was super depressed, and I remember this vividly. I always have trouble remembering things, but I remember this vividly because I was so depressed. I had cried multiple times in front of her. And because she had taken me to a basketball game, there's more to it behind, but it doesn't matter. And we were just trying to have a conversation, and I looked around and I just saw everybody just kind of watching the game because the game had started, and I was just pontificating and just saying what came into my head. And I told her, I said, you see, I feel I watch this game different than most people, because I feel most people are just sitting in their seats going, look at him bounce the ball. He's going to pass it. Oh, look, the guy shot the ball. Oh, we missed it, but we got the rebound. Yay. Me, I'm going, I wonder what his shooting percentage is. I wonder what play they're running. I wonder what defense they're running. Yeah. I wonder who's on the bench. I wonder who's injured. It's just
millions of things.
Just click, 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 click. And my mom finally, after 42 years on this earth, my mom goes, that sounds exhausting. And she said it with such conviction. And I went, it is. And I started crying, and she reached over to hug me, and she hugged me. And I swear to God, I felt this big. I felt I was being entombed by my mother. It was such a emotional moment that I felt my mom, for the first 42 years of my life, actually understood what it was inside my brain. And that's been one of the major epiphanies that I had, that we can't hide our feelings. We have to talk to people. We have to share our ideas. And that's where the honesty comes into play. Is that, it's not about, how was the game? Oh, what was the weather? Da, 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 da. No, it's like, level. What's on your mind? What's like you talked about your relationship, I mean, obviously, that's tough. You want to be able to gel with somebody. You try to gel with them, and you don't. And what I've determined, I just have random thoughts that I'll write things down because I'll forget it if I don't. I have to think something's good enough to write it down, and then it probably gets lost in a sea of writing. But some things stand out. And another thing that I've thought of is, when it comes to love, a lot of people say love is sacrifice. Love is what's the term? It's this is where the ADHD comes in. This is not a hard word, but I can't think of what it is. Yeah. But they say like it's there's nothing you can do to stop love. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's an unstoppable force. Yeah, if you're in love with someone,
it's there's nothing there. It's without you can't call anything wrong with it. There is a word for it, but it doesn't matter. What I say, and I think is accurate, is that love is what you're willing to forgive.
That's pretty profound. How much are you willing to forgive and still stay in the relationship and work on the relationship? Sometimes you can't. You have to call it.
Because every argument is something where you go, the glass. That's not a big deal for you, but obviously it's a huge deal for her. And that doesn't make either of you right or wrong, but that's one of those untenable things where I can't function properly with this going on. It's too distracting, it's frustrating, and you won't take responsibility for it. And then it's just a fucking glass, dude.
That's what I say. It's funny because that's what she used to say to me. She said, "You never take responsibility for anything," and I'm going, it's a glass on the table.
See, it's funny. It's funny that I could say that, but without you saying that, right? I knew that's where it would go. But that's the thing is that, and that's what I told my fiance when we first got together. I said, everybody has a list of all the things that their partner must have. And everybody's list is different. Some people, first thing, it's got to be looks. Some people, they want hair color. Some people want eye color. Some people want rich. Some people want this. Some people want that. Some people want somebody who makes them laugh. Some people want a good body. Some people want this. And the more things that are on top of your list, the more things that you're willing to forgive, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But you mentioned, then also, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned rules. I was interested to go back to that. Take us through your rules. What are they? Explain it, because I think someone who might be listening on the spectrum or something that's going, I resonate with everything Nick is saying. I mean, I just resonated with what you said about me and my ex. She those were her words many times. She would say that. So it makes me think, I'm pretty sure she was on the spectrum, and I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I mean, I understood on some level, but then there was an issue there of me not completely comprehending what she was going through. So it made me out to be the bad guy, leaving that glass on the table or the dish on the side instead of washing it or whatever it might be. What I wasn't trying to be an asshole, but it was just completely different personalities and different ways of looking at things.
Sure. And I'll give you a great example of that in my own life too. That's something I've talked about on the podcast many times. My fiance has severe C-PTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder, from her experiences that she had when in her earlier life. There are things that you wouldn't wish on your worst enemy. I barely know the tip of the iceberg. We together about 7 years before she shared any of that with me.
Wow.
And it was 3 years before she told me that she was faking her persona and that she was absolutely miserable inside and felt she was screaming inside her head all day, and it broke my heart. So after that, I tried, being the empathetic, kind person that I am, to try to help her, to get her to talk about things, to have her open up. And the more I did, she would pull away and get frustrated and mad. We had a couple big blow-ups from conversations, and I felt she wasn't hearing me. She felt I wasn't hearing her. And so we were just at an impasse. And it wasn't until I learned that once again, it's the ADHD. As big of a thing as it was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was when I learned that for her, talking about emotions is being dishonest to her. It's right up there on the list, because when you talk about emotions, it brings her back to a place that she doesn't want to go to. And I need to respect that. Even though I love to talk about deep things and everything, I don't get to do that with her because, I mean, occasionally, but not often. And that's okay because everything else that she brings to the table is more than worth that sacrifice. So I forgive her for that. And I mean, it's nothing to forgive. I'm just saying it in the
I know what you
sense.
mean.
But I
Something you
accept her
can't
for that.
engage in. It's something that
Yeah.
whatever, she can't deal with it. So you're not going to push it. Obviously, you could just say, no, we're going to talk about this. And
Then
it's
she'll
not going to
shut
happen.
down and she'll get frustrated,
Yeah,
and I'll
it's
literally,
counterproductive.
and it's almost I'm violating her, quite frankly. It truly
Right.
is. It's she's being violated again. And
Yeah,
so
that's not helpful.
that's just not okay. That's not okay. You need to, and that's something I talked about on a podcast recently, was about when you have somebody with trauma, that's how you need to handle it. You cannot push them, and you don't want to dismiss it, or you don't want to give them advice. You just need to be an ear. You just need to you just need to say, I love this person, or this person means a lot to me. So they're feeling comfortable enough to share with me, so I'm going to listen. Because somebody was there for me in December when I reached out. I sent out a Facebook post that was kind of testing the waters. That was really, I'm at my wit's end. Somebody help. It was,
See if
it was
anybody
basic.
responds.
And then quite a few people did. And one of the first people who did was one of my fiance's best friends, who we've never met in real life. We've spoken maybe half a dozen times just online, very briefly, but he was right there, and he was dialed in, and he was asking questions, and he would just let me talk. And he said, these feelings are normal. It's okay. You can talk to me. And I don't remember everything we talked about, but it was exactly what I needed. And so I don't remember. See, I don't remember how we got on that, but I think it was a good place to go.
We will be right back in just a few minutes with the second half of this conversation with Nick P. from the Autistic Pod. If you haven't figured this out by now, we talked about this at the introduction to the show. This is actually part 1. So we're going to conclude this in a few minutes. We're going to get into Nick's 9 rules for life. And then if you want to hear Nick's interview of me, after this episode ends, head over to the Autistic Pod and you'll be able to catch part 2, his interview of me. So that's coming up in just a few minutes on this show. And then part 2 is over on the Autistic Pod. Just wanted to let you know what's coming up here the next few episodes. I've got a really good conversation with Timmy Joe Gibson. He, like me, is a former pastor, although he kind of comes out of the more charismatic side. We had a really, really good conversation. I'm really glad to be connecting with him. If you want to connect, in fact, speaking of Timmy Joe, if you want to connect with him, you can look up Timmy's Deconstruction group on Facebook. I'm a member of that group. A couple thousand people in there. I think it's a pretty big group, over 1,000 for sure. And we talk about all kinds of things related to deconstructing, leaving the faith, leaving cults, religious trauma syndrome, and so forth. So that's a really good group, good support group. So that's going to be coming up with Timmy Joe. And then I've got a really fantastic interview scheduled with Gareth Gore. Now, I've got a connection with him through my good friend Catherine Stewart, who was just on the show not long ago talking about her book, Money, Lies, and God. And she turned me on to a book called Opus, which is written by the Brit Gareth Gore. And I read that book. It's about Opus Dei. And I've now been able to get in touch with Gareth. And so I'm going to schedule him. We've got a recording booked coming up in the early March, I think it is. So that's coming up as well. So we got some really good stuff in the pipeline. In fact, speaking of Nick P., I was just going to mention he is going to be our guest. Technically, it's for the February Dismantling Doctrine podcast Zoom call, but because February only has 28 days, we're actually going to hold this call on the 1st of March, even though we're calling it the February DDP call, the Zoom call. You can get access to this by becoming a Patreon supporter of the show. And in fact, speaking of Patreon supporters, I want to send a big thank you to Carrie Tickner. She just became a member of the show, or I should say she became a Patreon supporter of the show. That's what I meant to say. I think she's from Australia. I think it had to do with the episode that came out with Brian and Troy from the I Was a Teenage Fundamentalist podcast. If you missed that one, you need to go back and find that. That was a really good conversation. So thank you to Carrie for being the latest Patreon supporter of the show. And as I mentioned, becoming a Patreon supporter gets you access to these Dismantling Doctrine podcast Zoom calls that we try to do once a month. In the month of March, as I say, we're going to do the one with Nick P. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to be booking in Catherine Spearing. We just talked right before the end of the year about her book, 1,000 Tiny Paper Cuts. So we're going to be talking about dealing with religious abuse, spiritual abuse, and that kind of thing. So we've actually got 2 calls in the month of March. One's on the 1st and one's on the last Sunday of the month with Catherine Spearing. So great benefits to becoming a Patreon supporter of the show. Hopefully we'll see you there on these DDP Zoom calls. And then just one last thing before we get back into the conversation with Nick, I wanted to mention that I was recently a guest on Chris Shelton's Speaking of Cults podcast. We talked about evangelicalism, the Trump support, what's going on there. We got into actually Opus Dei, Dominion theology. We got into a lot of things, a really wide-ranging conversation. So if you want to catch that, head over to Chris Shelton's Speaking of Cults podcast and catch his interview of me over there. And one more thing I need to mention, if you haven't checked out my book, Not So Shiny, Not So Happy People, How Bill Gothard, Church and Family Taught Me Christianity Doesn't Work, you can check that out. Get a copy of it on Amazon. You can get it as a Kindle book, a paperback, or my Audible version, the one I narrated. And if you do pick up a copy of the book, please do me a favor, leave me a review, which helps massively with the book's rankings on Amazon. All right, let's get on back into the second half of this conversation with Nick P. from the Autistic Pod. We are now going to hear Nick reveal his 9 rules for life. And if you want to email me, talk to me about that, I can put you in touch with Nick as well. Send me an email, dismantlingdoctrine@gmail.com. All right, let's get on into the second half. Finish this episode with Nick P. You were given an example of how this works, but let's get into these rules. I'm interested to hear what your rules are and how they actually work, how they function.
Absolutely. All right. So rule 1, this was basically me just trying to come up, because my podcast ultimately is trying to get society on a better path. This is not a Donald Trump thing. This is not a Republican Democrat thing. This is not a neurotypical versus neurodiverse thing. This is just a human thing. Me seeing things in my empathetic, logical way that my ADHD presents it to me, and being able to diagnose what's going on, what people aren't doing, and what we can do to deal with the problems that arise that make our lives more difficult. And so the very first thing is to grow. You need to try to grow every day and become a better person than you were yesterday. The best way to do this that I've found is surround yourself with people who challenge you and present new ideas, because life is about learning, adjusting, and doing better. So when when you're able to grow and learn the new things, and for somebody who's neurodivergent especially, the more you can learn to work within your neurodivergency instead of against it, that makes you a stronger, smarter, more capable person. But what does that look like for you? Only,
it's going to be different for everyone.
Up to you. Yeah. You have to. One of the first things I did when I got out of my depression is I changed my algorithm from all the government and all of the electoral stuff and everything that had just happened, and all of the political messages, to motivation, to seeking out the groups that talked about trauma, that talked about neurodivergency, and that gave good advice, and talk about their experiences. There's a lot of philosophical quotes. I love Carl Jung. He's got some great stuff. One of the things that he says that's really one of my favorite quotes is, life doesn't begin until you're 40. Up until then, you're just doing.
I can resonate with that.
I think that's so true. But
it's true. Going back to what you're saying, I mean, during the first Trump administration, I was really wound up. Every morning I'd wake up and grab my iPad and look at Trump latest news and what's Trump lying about this time. And I got really wound up. And my ex-wife, she said at the time, you got to stop doing that. You said change the algorithm, because every morning you wake up and you're driving off to work, you're pissed off, you're angry, you're upset. You don't want to start your day that way every day, angry and upset and frustrated. and you're doing it to yourself basically. And I've changed that now. I do keep tabs on the news, but nowhere near what I used to, because I got too wound up.
Yeah, my Threads post literally today was the thought of the day. You wouldn't sell a Rolex, a car, or even a house for less than it was worth unless you were helping someone out. We all know how to get proper value for physical goods, but what about our emotions? You know, try and remember your emotions and mental health are much more valuable. And if you give them away to strangers who think differently than you or people you can't control, Donald Trump and all that, you're only hurting yourself.
That's definitely words of wisdom for sure. All right, so what's the next rule then? We're going to grow every day. That's the first thing. What's the second rule?
The second rule is personal accountability. You have to hold yourself accountable in the right way, so then you respect yourself, and then in turn you respect others.
That's good.
If you're self-accountable, you're not going to be a dick for no reason. Those people in your class that that just stand out to you in all the wrong ways, because what if that person needed your help with something? Are you going to want to help that person? No. Why would you? Why would you?
Yeah.
So you catch more flies with honey than vinegar, as they say. But it's most important. But that's kind of off topic, to be frank. The personal accountability is me. I try to always practice my rules. I try to remind myself, am I living my rules? Am I practicing what I preach? Am I growing? Am I still pushing myself? Am I doing everything? And so personal accountability is so important for you to be able to look in the mirror and say, I did my best. And sometimes, this is from another post that I read, I think it was Gary Vaynerchuk or maybe somebody else, but when it says give 100%, if you only have 5% in you and you give that 5%, you gave 100%. Just because you didn't have a productive day doesn't mean that you didn't do everything you could have.
Sure. Some days are more productive than others.
Exactly. Sometimes we're burned out. Sometimes when I was depressed in December, sometimes, I mean, the only thing I could do was just lie in the bed, and because I couldn't contemplate anything else because everything else was worse.
It's too overwhelming.
Exactly. And so, but that's the personal accountability, is you got to hold yourself accountable within reason. Because, you know, like if you're depressed or something, don't be down on yourself. The holding yourself accountable is saying, I'm depressed. I'm not going to push myself. I'm going to go to a place that makes me feel safe, or that just doesn't put me in danger of, making things worse.
And you can exacerbate it.
Exactly. So obviously that's going to be different for everybody, but just always keep in mind to hold yourself accountable. I'm telling this person to do this thing, but am I doing it, or do I have the right to tell this person to do it?
Take responsibility for things you have no authority for. That's a big one, isn't it? All right. So what's the third rule? How many rules have you got? I was going to ask you that. How many are there? You're going to say, if you're going to say 50,
I don't know.
We could be
I
here.
haven't. No. I try to keep them as short as possible. I think all of them are important, different things. So this is a big one, especially in nowadays. Labels do not define a person. Actions do. Race, gender, sexual preference, political affiliation, neurotype, these are all simply pieces to the puzzle. Never generalize anyone unless you're recognizing their actions as shitty, and then you follow the next rule, which is my favorite rule. Distance yourself from violent, selfish, ignorant people, and never take anything they say to
That's good. That's hard to do, but that's really good. I resonate with that, because you can take it so personally, can't you?
Exactly. And why would you? If you recognize that this is a shitty person, why the fuck do you care about their opinions?
Exactly. But we take it so personally.
Yeah.
It's like, if I cared about what you said, it would really hurt my feelings. But
exactly. But you don't matter to me, and that's the ultimate revenge too.
It's true. Leave them twisting in the wind.
I've stopped so many online arguments and everything with that, because they just start barraging, and they start getting all mad, and they start calling names and everything. And I'm just, I'm going to go ahead and leave this conversation because it's obviously not productive, but I hope you have a great day. and they'll usually come back with some bullshit, and then I don't care. I don't even block them because it's not even they can
not worth your time.
So few rarely respond back. That is, I do the same thing when I'm driving. When I'm driving on the highway or something, or going 70 miles an hour, somebody blares by me, cuts me off or something, I'm not chasing that guy or shouting it. I'm back off. I'm just, you go do you go kill yourself. And just, I don't want to be anywhere near you because you're a selfish person who doesn't care about anybody but yourself.
You've shown that by the way you're driving.
Exactly. And once I determine somebody's a selfish, ignorant, or a violent person, I'm just, bye.
See ya.
Exactly.
Leave them in the rear view mirror. Yep. Let them go on ahead. That's
exactly.
good. I like that rule too. That might be one of my favorite ones.
Well, yeah, excellent. So the next one is be the change that you want to see in the world. Be the person that you want others to be, especially in hard moments. With this one does get a little political because I've seen so many people online on both sides. This is one of my biggest arguments is I have no problem with any political party. I have a problem with extremists. In every sense of the imagination. I have a problem with the extreme left. I have a problem with the extreme right. I have a problem with anybody who says that they know best out of everything and refuse to come to the table and listen to anybody else's ideas. Because nobody's perfect. Nobody has everything figured out. And you never know where you can find inspiration, and you never know what your neighbor knows.
That's true. Because mutual expansion, even that guy with the Trump sign in his yard, you might actually learn something from that guy. There's something worthwhile in there somewhere if you can get past all the bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. So which rule
if you don't talk about politics with that guy, and you just you might get along with him, and then you might actually have a conversation where you have a chance to change his mind instead of calling him a racist hypocrite and him hating you, and then him wanting your family to die because he thinks you're a jerk. Again, you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. You don't need to go out and tell everybody your politics. You don't need to go out and make everything about politics, because we're all just human beings trying to do the best we can with what we have. The majority of people.
What are we up to now? This is about.
I think that was 6. I'm having to read it. No, that was 5. I'm having to. That was 5. I've got them written down.
To hear what the other 4 are.
They're written down in different places and different ways and everything. I think there's one that I forgot, but it doesn't matter. This is a big one, especially for me. Listen when others talk. Just how you want to be the change of the world. Don't interrupt people unless you're adding or participating with what they're saying. And as a person with ADHD, I have to interrupt so I don't forget my own thought. But you would be amazed at the amount of times that I choose not to, because I choose not to on most occasions, because I know I wouldn't want to be interrupted during my thoughts as well. And I need to be the change I want to see, and I need to grow. So sometimes when somebody's talking, 99 times out of 100, my mind is just trying to think of a response already, and I've already stopped listening. And so sometimes I'm just, okay, that's something good to say. And then within 15 seconds, I'll forget it. And then I'll be like, okay, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe I'll come back with it, or maybe not, but I need to keep listening. And so that's what it's inside my head. And I also have if we were face to face, I wouldn't be able to look you in the eyes. It doesn't hurt on camera, but because you don't know where I'm looking and I don't know where you're looking. But in real life, I hate looking people in the eyes. Not because I can't remember a thing you say, because I'm so focused on staring at your eyes, because it's so important to do that I won't hear a word you say. And so that's why that old adage of, look people in the eye or they'll think you're a liar, is like practically ableist to me and a lot of autistic people, because we're some of the most honest people in the world, but we're labeled liars because we can't look you in the eye. That's a dumb old thing. So 7 was one of the biggest ones for me. Which I think is, huge. Worry about what you can control. Trying to control things out of our control is a waste of precious time, energy, and in many cases, health. And that goes back to politics. That goes back to, like if an accident happens, if you were driving the best way you know how to and you get rear-ended, it sucks. But what were you going to do? It's happened. You can, try to maintain yourself and deal with the situation at hand. Don't freak out, like say that I always think don't cry over spilled milk, because hey, you spilled the milk. It's okay. It's not going to get unspilled. All you need to do is just get a paper towel or towel, soak it up, and then maybe buy some new milk if you lost your milk. Most of us are in a place where we can just go out and get a new thing of milk if we need it. So
I hope so.
Exactly. So, you just and I've already forgot what it was. So yes, worry about what you can control, because it's obviously, and I see so many people. That's one of the biggest things that I talk to people about, especially if it's anything relationship. Can you? And it's with me and my fiance. I do not have the ability to control her, to tell her what she needs to do, to make her make my decisions. She is going to do what she wants to do. I have to worry about what I can do to benefit her and to make her a happy person. And then hopefully, if I have placed my love in the right place, she will reciprocate. But if I'm just worried about her and trying to make her do what I want her to do, then why is she going to return? She's going to return the same thing. She's going to tell me that I need to be a different person and that I need that. And that's why we gel so well together, is because we accept each other for the crazy, neurotic, ADHD, all of our faults, all of our traumas and everything. We accept that.
Right.
We don't worry about what we can't control.
You can't control, and you get the respect back that you give out too, don't you? Generally speaking, that's how it should work. If you respect someone else, you hope and pray that they're going to respect you back and give you that back.
And unless they're ignorant, selfish, or violent, and then you just distance yourself.
Avoid.
You see how the rules start. You see how they start. It all meshes
together.
Yep.
Yeah. So is that all of them, or did you forget one?
We got two more. We got two more.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to fail. Failure is the best teacher. Anyone who disagrees isn't following rule number 1. It's near impossible to grow without trying new things and potentially failing. And if you learn from your mistakes and failures, you then become wiser and more capable, and you've grown. So that's a huge one. Absolutely.
So many people they're so afraid to try anything new. I can remember years and years ago when I was a kid, my cousin Dan lived next door. He was a fantastic athlete, and I invited him snow skiing one time. And he said, absolutely not, because if I fall down, everyone's going to laugh at me. And I said, but Dan, everyone falls down. It's the whole point of skiing is you're going to fall on your ass thousands of times, and then you'll get better and better. But you're a gifted enough athlete, you'll pick it up pretty quick. And he would never, ever do it. Every time I went skiing, I would always invite him, and he would say no. And so he lost out on that potential fun because he was afraid to fail, basically, was what it came down to, wasn't it? He didn't want people laughing at him, so he wasn't ever going to try.
Yep.
It's a shame, isn't it?
Could be. And then, on his side, maybe it's funny because I can tell you from my fiance is a danger seeker. She's a risk taker. In different ways, because I went skydiving and she never wanted to go skydiving, but she did go skydiving with me, but she had a complete breakdown on the plane. She still made it out. We did the tandem jump, right. But it was a crazy time. I was really proud of her. But the point I was going to was we were in Hawaii and she wanted to rappel down a waterfall. And so we did. And I had my first panic attack that I've ever had in my life. Once I got down the waterfall, I can remember feeling I was going to die. I remember my stomach. I just felt I was going to throw up. My brain had convinced me that we were going to die. That's one of the main things that I want to preach that I think a lot of people don't understand. And that gets back to something that you were talking about originally in the podcast about neurodivergent brains and autistic brains and about the different ways that we function. Or no, you talked about autistic people. Once they get their diagnosis, they feel better about it. And I think that's because I never contemplated the idea that my brain and your brain are doing different things until I realized that I was that I was autistic. Once I realized that, it was, oh, so my brain is completely different than a lot of other people's, and they don't deal with the shit that I deal with, good or bad. And so they can't empathize with me. That's why when I say something weird, they get all pissed off because they don't understand. I had 10 other things that I thought that I didn't say because I said this, because I thought it was the least offensive thing.
Right.
And
you
if
should have
they
heard the other
knew
9.
that, maybe they wouldn't take it as harshly. But yeah,
you thought you picked the best one and it still was offensive.
Exactly. You should have heard 10 iterations ago. You just wanted to punch me in the face. But they don't see that work. They don't understand that you're still trying to be soft and not aggressive and not mean, but you want to be honest, because I mean that's me personally.
All right, so have you got one rule left? Are we at number 9?
Yep. And this is the most important one. After you learn the other ones, you got to live your life now. Once you're done, once you're living the core values, to do the things that bring you joy. For me, it's time with my fiancée, heavy metal festivals, podcasting, conversation, eating, drinking great food, travel, and spoiling myself every now and again. These are the things that make life worth living. These are the things that are the goals. I mean, we were looking forward to Kentucky for Louder Than Life for months and months, and we've already got our passes scheduled for Rockville. We're going to the Vans Warped Tour in November. We just love going to live concerts and hearing the music that moves us. Because if you wanted to have a podcast about music, I would talk your ear off about metal music, and I could play you 10 different songs to break your heart if you have the empathy to hear it and to absorb it and to hear where that person is in their mind at that moment. Because good heavy metal music is so deep and neurological and psychological and full of specific and real trauma.
It resonates on a deep level, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm an old school 80s metalhead. I mean, I grew up on all that. AC/DC, Van Halen, Dokken. I went to Monsters of Rock. I played in Christian metal bands for years. I still play in bands. So I'm resonating with everything you're talking about.
There's one song by Motionless in White that really stands out to me. I mean, there's a ton, but it's called Disguise, and it's just all about wearing a mask. It's all about. I mean, he's got lyrics that, let me see if I can remember. How does the chorus go? Oh, I found myself by losing hope. I lost the way to find a home. I hid myself to stay alive. Now I'm ready to face my disguise. The whole song is about one of the lyrics is, mirror, mirror, tell me who you see. Am I you or me? I can never remember. Because when you mask, you lose track of yourself. You forget. You don't get to be yourself, and it erodes you from the inside out. Because I mean, it's an effort in futility, because literally anybody who identifies with that person is not somebody you identify with, because you're pretending to be a different person. So obviously a person that is gravitated towards that person is probably not going to be a person that you would enjoy through your real self. And so you're only hurting yourself, and you can't find the people that operate on your wavelengths, and you suffer in silence. You sit at home miserable while the rest of the world couldn't care less. The rest of the world has no idea the inner turmoil inside you. Why would they? And even if they did, they would not care. 99% of them would just be, that's fucking life. Shut up and with it. Everybody deals with that. But those are people, the 1% of people are the people that have gone through real depression, are the people that have been through these very difficult, it's probably larger than that, but and those are the people that would, when you talk about these things, they're, oh wow, I totally get what you're saying. I've had the same experience. Yes, I'm so frustrated. I found my little niche of people that did what I say, but I just it's still so niche because so many people would, in my opinion, rather tell themselves a fairy tale and go to sleep at night on a lie rather than attack the truth and do work on themselves and actually hold themselves accountable.
That's true. Well, listen, we're running out of time, man. It's been a really good conversation. I've learned a lot. I love your 9 rules. I'm going to have to, I think you've sent them to me on Instagram. I'll take a look at them again because I'm thinking that would make a good thing to print out and hang on the wall. But now we have a lot to talk about in part 2. I mean, you're going to interview
Definitely.
me. So, I mean, we didn't talk about politics. We didn't talk about religion. We touched on heavy metal music. So we're both I'm an ex-80s metalhead from way back. So we got a lot to talk about. So if you want to hear part 2, you're going to have to head over to the Autistic Pod to hear Nick's interview of me. So stay tuned for that. Jump over to his platform. Just real quickly, where can people find you on social media? What's the best place if they want to connect with you?
Currently, Spotify is where you can listen to the podcast. I have a few up on YouTube, and then Threads is where I'm on the most. Threads and Instagram, and I'm also on Facebook and TikTok. All add out.
That's the main kind of platform. So listen, we're gonna head over to Nick's platform now. If you want to hear part 2, head over there. This is gonna be really good. I'm gonna enjoy being now interviewed by Nick. So thanks, Nick, for taking almost an hour to chat with me. I really enjoyed it. I've learned a lot. And I will see you over on your platform in a little bit.
Thanks so much, Glenn. Have a good one.